Hey everybody, Joseph Rothschild here, aka MBT, and it is Banlist season, baby! I think. So if you're unfamiliar, the FNL list updated a couple of months ago and said the next update would be a couple of months from now. Now that it's been a couple of months, I want some free content! For those of you who are unfamiliar, for YugiTubers, Banlist season is like Christmas and their birthday rolled into one. We get to make a prediction video, a wishlist video, a reaction video, a video about what Konami did wrong, and depending on if you have a Twitch presence, 2 weeks of streams about how frustrated you are the list hasn't come out yet. But if you're me, you get to make one additional piece of content, and that is the Masochist Banlist tournament. You see, every single Forbidden and Limited list season, I like to remind Konami that a significant amount of the cards on the list could come off tomorrow with no broader implications on metagame play whatsoever. There's a lot of cards that are on the list that were put there in 2010, and the reality of card design has absolutely eclipsed them. Routinely, I like to go through and see how many you can remove, and we have pushed it to its logical endpoint most recently, with half of the cards on the Forbidden and Limited list removed. The winner of the subsequent tournament was Synchron. I guess all they needed was one Jet Synchron. Anyway, today we will be going even further beyond and removing over half of the FNL list and seeing what happens. Now, before I give you a list of what is unlimited in my unban list, I'd like to do a quick prediction about what I think the actual list will contain. So I don't think there's too much wrong with Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now. I really like the format. I think most people's frustrations with it come from a position of price. The Adventure Engine does a lot for the format. Dracoback in particular is preventing people from making Oppo boards or flipping Skill Drain, and unfortunately, many people cannot afford the engine that affords them that luxury. If the adventure stuff gets reprinted soon, I think you will see a lot more people enjoying the format just because they have access to the really powerful cards that, in my opinion, are doing a lot of the work putting it on its back. That said, I would like to see a couple of things changed in Yu-Gi-Oh! Specifically. First up, I'd like a Scythe ban. Now, Scythe isn't fantastic this format. It's certainly good. Going first, it's an unbelievable setup with any Dagda or DPE deck, but in reality, there is a lot going against it. Firstly, the setups are interruptible, like any other setup would be. Secondly, the setups don't do anything against a significant amount of the meta. Many decks like Fluanderees do not care at all about Scythe. Thirdly, it's interruptible even at the point of resolution. You can do something like Called by the Scythe or Imperm the Scythe on field. There are ways around it, but they're kind of few and far between. And finally, it's only really good going first. Realistically, I think that Scythe is in a very strange position. Occasionally, it's a game winner, and occasionally your opponent just does adventure stuff, passes it back to you, and wins anyway. That said, occasionally it's a game winner, and I think the games that it wins are very frustrating, and as a result, I would like to see this card banned. Next up is Predaplan Verte Anaconda. If I get nothing else, I want this one banned specifically. This card is so frustrating. I like that you have such a wealth of hand traps at your disposal in this format in particular. You can really pick apart a combo player's turn, but it's so frustrating when a combo player ends their turn with a couple of errant monsters on their side of the field and goes, okay, now that you have a 2-card hand, contend with this DPE. I do not like that at all, and I certainly hope the Verte Anaconda quits rewarding that style of gameplay, a style that has become only more popular with the release of Branded Fusion. And finally, same feeling about Crystron Halqifibrax. If one of those 2 errant monsters remaining on the combo player's field is a tuner, they can just do the Auroradon line. I hate that every single deck has to contend with this as part of their first turn setup. They have to consider if they want to be doing Auroradon bullshit or they want to be playing their native archetype and the plays that are enabled by their specific cards. I would like Halqifibrax to finally bite the dust, and I'd like many of the cards that are on the list because of Halqifibrax to come off. Speaking of, let's talk about what I've brought off this time. Now remember, with every Masochist Banlist tournament, we also host a sign-up page. So if you go to the Discord, link in the description, you can find a channel where you can post a list that conforms to the following ban list. If you think you can break this format, prove it to me, and we will look through the lists submitted on Wednesday on stream. So first, here are the cards that I'm moving from 0 to 1. Victory Dragon is on the list for rules-associated reasons. It's a match winner, but you can scoop anytime, making it functionally useless. People don't want that uselessness explained to them, so they want judges to not have to do so. Amaryllis is part of a terrible FTK. Blaster is a dragon ruler with a very powerful hand effect that is maybe playable in Infernoble or something, but the dragon rulers aren't really strong unless you unban a critical mass of them, and Dragon specifically does not have any lack of extenders. I don't think Blaster specifically is going to make any big changes to the metagame. Kieran and Monkey Board and Plush Fire are all off once again. Those cards in particular are completely fine provided you do not have Electromite in the format. Jin Releaser of Rituals is maybe a sussy takeoff when one of the top decks is a ritual-focused archetype, but that Archetype's ritual spell is so specific that you actually have to splash a small Kloss engine to even be able to set up a Djinn releaser of rituals. The deck could just theoretically tribute summon a Majesty's Fiend anyway. I don't think this is changing too much. They listened to me on Tiger. Welcome back, buddy. Blackwing's Steam the Cloak could easily come back off. This card is one of those cards that is broken specifically because of Halka Fibrax, but I think what it enables isn't too ridiculous. Same with Jet Synchron, same with Glow Up Bulb. These cards are also one-card Halka Fibraxes, which is frustrating to some people, but realistically, I do not think that that is too far outside the realm of possibility, given the realistic modern card design that has printed cards like Righty and Lefty Driver, Deep Sea Diva, and kept them legal for long enough that they still make Halk on their own. Grass Looks Greener is in a weird position. At 1, I think it's completely fine. People aren't really going to left arm offering for it. And more realistically, because people are playing 60-card piles, this is not going to be as strong as people think it will be. Heavy Storm. I have no idea why Harpy's Feather Duster is on the list and Heavy Storm is not. The argument is you can blow up your own floodgates or like your Eldritch spells. I don't think that's very good, if you're asking me. Metamorphosis. It might feel bad to bring off a fusion spell when one of the top decks is a fusion associated archetype, but I think the amount of extra deck space you're going to have to commit to something like an unsearchable one of like Metamorphosis means that it's okay. Spellbook of Judgment is a really good card that enables Spellbook specifically, but it's not enough. In a scenario where you've summoned 20 monsters this turn, you probably deserve to win. Smoke Grenade of the Thief will be good in Infernoble exactly, but I think that deck's just under the power level necessary. I think we brought off last turn last time as well. A dedicated combo deck probably could find last turn and Jaugen and a way to get your life points down to 1,000, something like a Wall of Revealing Light all at once, but realistically I don't think that that's very good. There's a lot of other ways to get 3 unsearchable 1-ups to win the game instantly. Ever heard of Banquet Burn? And those are cards you can search off of Trap Trick. At 1, last turn won't be. Speaking of cards you can't search at 1, it's Self-Destruct button. There was an argument that when this card was at 3, it was a real problem and people just gentlemansed out of it, rule zeroing out of a format where you just went to time every single round. I don't think that the setups for this are consistent enough to beat the multiple hand traps that your opponents will find, and it also doesn't win you the game. Trap Dust Shoot, weird card. I think this card can come to 1. There's a ton of cards that already hand loop. This hand loop doesn't play well with other hand loops. Your opponent has to have not fired like multiple hand traps over the course of their turn, or they can like screw you out of this. It doesn't advance your combo at all. You have to draw it on the first turn because any subsequent turn it's absolutely dead, and it only hits monsters. I think that there is better. I'm personally a little concerned about Orcust Harp Horror. I think Orcust will be very good in this ban list, but we have had Harp Horror illegal in, I think, the OCG and Master Duel, and it's been pretty lackluster, so I imagine that it will be in the TCG as well. Mecha Phantom O-Line increases the end board of your Auroradon setups, which are already crazy. Samsara Lotus is part of a terrible FTK. Tidal is a Dragon Ruler I'm a little more reticent to remove just because it would be really good in a water strategy, which almost has legs already. I'd like to see that strategy come to fruition, however, so please break this card. Speaking of breakable cards, now I know what you're thinking. Have you lost your mind? Well, I'm trying to get 90 cards off the FNL, so yeah, I mean, probably. I think Delinquent Duo is good, but I don't think it's as broken as we pretend it is. Certainly there are already cards that remove cards from your opponent's hand on the first turn. Just look at the completely legal Neospatian Aqua Dolphin, which featured in many decks over the course of its lifespan. There's also targeted hand removal as well. Delinquent Duo strikes me as less powerful than something like Confiscation or the Forceful Sentry, or even Neospatian Aqua Dolphin, because it's not targeted. The first one's random, and the second one your opponent is allowed to pick. Now keep in mind you could play a hand destruction deck if it was a good strategy in Yu-Gi-Oh! But Yu-Gi-Oh! Card design now is built so that any individual card is your entire combo. So if your opponent is down to 0 and draws a Prank It off the top against 0 negates, they still win the game. In this scenario, not only is your opponent still left with 3 cards in hand plus the 4th off the top, they also get to pick one of them, which means they're probably discarding something like an Aquamancer anyway. Certainly I think this card will be good, but I don't think it will be game-warpingly bad. Sixth Sense, pretty similar. Man, I really dislike this card, but we are looking for individual cards to shave, and I think at 1, this card is just going to be an annoyance. Sometimes your opponent is going to be able to draw 5 or 6 cards, but most of the time they'll be bidding for completely useless ones. Ultimate Offering is maybe broken in Fluon Deriz, but not in a way that the deck isn't already broken. In the extra deck, we've got Wind Up Carriers and Meity. We are not making the Hunter switch, so this is going to be legal at the same time as Hunter, but again, I don't think that type of hand removal is that powerful. More importantly, One Zen Meity doesn't allow you to perform the loop unless you draw stuff like Pot of Avarice. I would like to see Wind Up broken, though. I think it is very close. Ancient Fairy Dragon really scares me. I do not want this card legal, but we are looking for individual cards to shave. I'm interested in seeing what it can do. I know it enables a ton of FTKs and field spell control. Show me why those decks deserve to be on the list. And finally, Simorgh, Bird of Sovereignty is a frustrating card. It is very powerful, but I don't think it's nearly as good as people expect. The power level of cards has gone way up since Tri-Brigade was the best deck, and I don't think that Barrier Statue of the Stormwinds is something that decks aren't equipped to beat in a format where everyone is playing Griffin Rider. And now the unlimits. Now the easy ones for this are the Limbs of the Forbidden One. These are only limited for lore-related reasons. I think that's fine, but also a really prime opportunity to take cards off. The Exodia deck doesn't get better the more bricks you put in it. The jars, Cyber Jar, Fiber Jar, and Morphing Jar, are only really good altogether and only an Empty Jar, which is a deck that can be beaten by playing exactly one Droll Lockbird. Masterpiece, of True Draco Slaying King, is really good. I mean, he's a good card, but he is not enough to facilitate a game plan on his own, and I think Konami realizes that, which is why he's on promotional stuff again. You will probably see this card unbanned shortly. Yatagarasu, completely fine. This card was only ever broken with Sed, and with Sed, the problem card was Sed, not Yatagarasu. Realistically, spending your normal on this in the year of our Lord 2022 isn't going to get you anywhere, especially when the game is not about what you draw off the top of your deck, but about managing your hard once per turns. Elma is part of an FDK that has not been good since 2004. Chicken Game is at 3 in Master Duel, and while it's annoying, I think it's probably fine. Zodiac Barrage is fine as long as we don't have Trident and Broadbull. Time Seal has never been good. Never, ever. Ava. Oh boy, we probably shouldn't put Ava to 3, but here we are. I think this will make Drytron a lot more playable, but I think that Drytron is going to continue to lose the stuff that Drytron lost to in the formats where Drytron was legal, which is really powerful equalizers and hand traps. Armageddon Knight probably doesn't deserve to be at 1. I mean, it's not a fantastic starter in this day and age. It conflicts with Adventure as well. It's really good to summon off of Isold, but you can do that with 1 copy anyway. Astrograph Sorcerer is another Electromite unhit. Cyberstein. The worst deck in the world is now going to be able to find their finisher a little higher percentage of the time, but it's still a multi-card finisher, so good luck. All of the dangers could come to 3 tomorrow, no problem. Dark Grepher is actually a little more scary than Armageddon Knight because there's ways to special it from the hand, but I think it's the same degree of okay. Dynamite Knight, the True Draco Fighter, is a card I am very personally scared of. I think that probably Maverick will show up with True Draco and body everyone once again, but I'd like to see it happen. Gen X Ally Birdman helps Link climb through some monsters that just are laughably bad in this day and age. Think what you can do with this, and I don't know, Reborn Tengu. Archfiend is fine as long as they only have the 1 lawn share. Knight Assailant got an errata and could come to 3 easily. Probably could come to 3 even without the errata. Phantom Skyblaster, a normal summon that summons a bunch of tokens. I do not know why this card was put to 1. The things it enables are not particularly broken. Gazelle could go to 3, no problem. Salamangreat is not making waves in this day and age unless your name is exactly Sebto. Spiral Quick Flicks could go to 3. Anything but Master Plan. Tempest, Dragon Ruler of Storms, is the weakest of the Dragon Rulers by a large margin. The only one I would feel comfortable putting at more than 1. We can put it to 3 tomorrow. True King Lithosogem is buff to Dino decks, but Dino decks have had a bad couple of years. I think that this facilitates a type of Dino strategy that is not particularly good. In the past, it also had these weird applications where you could go into VFD, but of course that card is banned now. Servant of Endymion with no Electromite. I mean, really, you could take any Pendulum card off. Destrudo, they thought it was fine to put to 1, so hell, let's put it to 3. Who cares? Card Destruction, I think, could go to 3, no problem. Chain Strike could go to 3. These burn decks aren't topping in this day and age. Dimensional Fissure, a floodgate that only does stuff going first. Completely fine to go to 3. Divine Wind of Mist Valley. This card facilitates some FTKs that are not worth talking about. Draco Face Off, another Pendulum card. God, Electromite truly keeping about 15 cards off this list. Final Countdown could go to 3, no problem. Decks that are going to win with Final Countdown would win long before the Final Countdown is stuck anyway. Monster Gate, really, really good in exactly Ruin Force FTK, a deck that I do not think is real. Gateway of the Six is not going to be playable because the loop is non-deterministic and you cannot do it in a tournament. Gold Sarcophagus. This is good for, like, Thunder Dragon, and probably would be played in, like, Fluonderies, but it's not a particularly good extender for either of those decks because one of them doesn't have a payoff and the other already banishes everything they want anyway by virtue of map. Instant Fusion has a hard once per turn on it, and in a format where I think games are decided by the first 3 turns, you probably aren't going to want to draw 2 of this. 1 Into the Void. I am a little concerned about putting all of the draw spells to 3, but Into the Void strikes me as one of the worst ones. Magical Mid-Breaker bigger field. Everyone told me that combo would be unbeatable if this card went to 3, and the answer is that actually no, it's not. It only stops a couple of hand traps, and now we have a card that stops all hand traps, provided you're playing them, and only half the format is playing it anyway. One Day of Peace, same deal with Into the Void. Reasoning, same with Monstergate. I mean, facilitates a really frustrating FTK strategy, but I don't think it's consistent enough to really see considerable metagame play. Sekka's Light to 1, I just don't get. Master Duel put it to 2 as well. I don't understand. The decks that Sekka's Light enables are not good in the larger scheme of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Metagame. I don't understand why we are gatekeeping it. Slash Draw is a 1 because of the FTK that it enables. I think that FTK is hilarious. I would love to see it go off, and I think it requires you to be uninterrupted and super lucky. Trickstar Light Stage was, I think, put to 1 to stop Orchest combo. I mean, it's 2022. Come on. 1 for 1. This one is a little sussy. There are a lot of really powerful 1-star monsters in the format, but I think that probably the minus is enough to prevent people from activating multiple copies over the course of a turn, and even if they do, I don't think it'll be that much bigger in terms of increasing the ceiling on existing strategies. Macrocosmos is a floodgate that will definitely produce some unfavorable game states, but it's at 3 other places, and it's not doing a whole lot. Magical Explosion is fine. There's substitutes for Magical Explosion already. This makes it a little more easy to find with something like a Trap Trick, which you don't want to be playing in Magical Explosion anyway. Wall of Revealing Light to 3 makes that last turn deck a little more consistent, but not enough to be a problem. Misk to 3 improves the quality of life of dinosaurs, but I think dinosaurs just suffer from an extremely low ceiling, and a way to compensate for the ceiling with Scrap Dino produces this combo deck that just loses to everything. Multi-roll, I think, could go to 3. It's weird to me that this card is not already at 3. I can't believe they put Engage to 1 before they put this card to 3, but I don't think it improves Sky Strikers so much that it will become a tier 0 super threat. Mindcon could go to 3, though it will immediately be played in every side deck. Anything that is not Master Plan can come off the Spiral list. I think Tanky can go to 3. I don't think that any of the decks that were abusing Tanky are going to be that devastating in this post-list format. Maybe Tri-Brigade Branded is good, but the low ceiling on that deck specifically probably means it's eaten alive by a lot of the decks that produce a lot better cards. We already have 1 Snow. What's the difference between 1 and 3? Fusion Destiny, I think, can go to 3. It's such a weird semi-limit. It's a nerf specifically to decks that were trying to activate Fusion Destiny instead of activating Verte, but activating Verte is so much better and so much more common. I have no problem increasing the ability of decks like Sky Striker to find DPE. Scapegoat was fine at 2. It's probably fine at 3. I think the only deck you can really jam it in consistently is like Guru. A Hero Lives, completely fine at 3. It's in Master Duel, and the deck is still PP. Salaman Great Circle can go to 3 as well. I have long been a proponent of Gazelle and Circle not being at 3 at the same time. I'd like to see how it turns out. I think Sebto is the man to break it. Wow! Remember when Disciple of the Nadir was everywhere? Remember when everyone said, oh my god, Servant's so broken, limit Servant? When was the last time you saw this card activated? And finally, Malicious can go to 3. Please stop hurting Hero. Maybe it enables, like, Dark Warrior, but I don't care. Danglong. This card is very good and would see immediate play in a lot of archetypes like Sword Soul, but I'd like to see people brew that strategy. I don't think necessarily the Danglong version is like better than the version that we already have now. Tempest Magician is part of an FTK that's 2 ludicrous dimensions, same with Tellarknight Tolmaeus. It used to be able to get CDI, which is why I think it was banned, but it also can turn skip, though that's pretty unlikely to happen. Master Diamond, again, an FTK that's just ridiculous. Meow Moo, I think, could go to... oh god. You know what? I've changed my mind on that. Go to hell, you cat. Psy-Frame Lord Omega could go to 3. The fear was you would summon 3 Omega and loop 3 cards out of your opponent's hand, which is laughable in this day and age. TG Hyper Librarian, I think, is at 1 because they're afraid you'll draw too many cards. Even the deck that wants to Synchro more than anything else, Synchron, only plays 1 just because it doesn't fit nicely into your combos. Emerald is on here for, like, I really don't remember the reason anymore. At first it was Zoo, and then it was like a World Chalice FTK. None of that stuff matters anymore. Mirage Dalio could come to 3. People even aren't playing it in Salaman Great because it runs up against DPE, which is so good in the archetype. Beatrice to 3. I can't imagine the second or third Beatrice is changing anything for anyone. Trishula, again, the fear is you'd banish 3 cards out of your opponent's hand. Who cares? And Striker Dragon 2-3 will be frustrating to deal with, but I don't think that Dragon Link is that good that it will break the archetype in a format where you can do so much more with so many other cards. So, I think you could probably remove all of these cards, and it would have no impact on the decks that people are playing or the wider metagame itself. Again, there's a link to a Discord where you can sign up for an upcoming Masochist Banlist tournament that will be played over the course of the next week. Get your submissions using this list in by tomorrow stream time, that is 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we're going to take a look at them and pick 16 or 32 of you, I haven't decided which, to duke it out using these monstrosities. I'm looking for both meta decks from the current format with skilled pilots and ridiculous nonsense specifically enabled by this list. Other than that, I'll see you for the next one.